get started. I'll introduce myself. I'll do a brief intro about you guys, and then maybe each of you can introduce better than what job I can do. Hello, everyone. My name is Praneeth Patlola. I've been in HR tech as more of a developer building things, and somehow went through approved product journeys and built to HR tech SaaS companies. Most recently, I had poked my hands into more on the voice engineering deeper end of how to build an AI recruiter or a few others, which is a story in detail for another day. But I thought this would be interesting to bring this amazing panels together to actually discuss the reality of AI in staffing. That's the primary topic for us, sir, which is AI in staffing. Is it really a threat, or is it really our own competitive advantage that we're going to enable ourselves to actually drive better, faster, cheaper way of how to deliver talent to our customers or in the talent acquisition arena? So everyone is familiar. So I'll go from the right side. We have today Noah Wisnia, who is the founder of Hire Ideal. I've known Noah for some time. He is one of those people I usually go to when it comes to like techniques of talent acquisitions and super hard to fill roles. He's been on the both sides of the funnel of talent acquisition, but also more in the recent years. Really focuses on super hard to fill roles, finding that purple squirrel is how we refer it in our industry, and enables a large amount of companies in his ecosystems to deliver the talent. And then we have JoAnne. I think in the staffing industry, everybody knows JoAnne. She has what, 3 decades of career, I guess, so far in staffing industry. Being a program manager, also on the buy side and also on the MSP side. And I remember once she was talking about like being starting as a recruiter in a super early stage of the career. So
Yeah.
been there, done that, and now JoAnne is with Allegius. I hopefully won't get that wrong because I get confused. Heading the technology partnerships, and then everybody knows JoAnne. We got Vik, who's the co-founder of Mindlands. Vik and I kind of go a little way back through industry events is how we got to know each other. Going into the SIA events, ProcureCon, and several other events. But Vik is somebody I usually get like a reality check in the staffing world. Sometimes it's super hard from a supplier point of view to see what is the reality, what is the hype. Are we going to do this for a next webinar or putting our name out to get more clients, or is it really the reality of here is a clear part of what works, what doesn't work in the operational side? Vic is like super hands-on, so I figured out it would be like amazing persons to have, given Mindlands is based there, I don't know, like 25 years in staffing industry. And congratulations, Vic, on your exit to Accenture. Vic also had co-founded another company which was in design firmware engineering space, if I got that right. And he exited that to Accenture more recently. So he's doing this full time. So I'll keep it short there, and then I wanted to go around like just to give you a self introductions, although my introductions are not so great, but sharing your experience so that people can understand as such to um, your existing work, what you're doing and at your work, and then we'll dive into the AI side quickly. No, on the right side, why don't you start yourself first?
Yeah, thanks, Praneeth. I spent a decade in product management before I fell into recruiting. I think everybody's got a fell into recruiting story someplace in their life. Um, Over the last decade in recruiting, I've done everything you can imagine. I've done the staffing, the contingency, the retain, the container. I've been heavily focused on those early stage startups. And what I learned, there's a lot of people processes that are broken. Um, and the sooner we can kind of get to those at the onset, at the definition of the job, and then really drill in to what we're looking for, who we're looking for, and then how we ultimately get to those people is key. And that's where my journey in AI and this conversation today, and Praneeth and I really met, and how I got to share the stage with JoAnne and Vik. So long story short, I'm very pro AI, and I'm sure we'll get more into that. A little bit about Hire Ideal. I basically got tired of doing it for everybody else, and now I do it for myself. And that way I can kind of do it my way. I can bring whatever tool bag I want, which is a very hefty tool bag. Pick the right kind of application for the job and get things done. So we work on anything from engineering to sales, customer success to finance, accounting, you name it, we nail it. We have a very interesting model. It's not quite the contingent. It's not quite the project. It's someplace in the middle. So if you're hiring and you're in those early pre-seed to Series B, Series C size companies, if you're a couple hundred people or less, if you don't know what to do, if you don't have a talent leader, I'm that guy. I've been there. I've done that. And I know the people. So even if I'm not the right person, I'll be the first one to say, here's the tool, here's the resource, and here's where to go. That's what we're all about. Said differently in the name, we hire ideal.
Awesome. Thanks, Noah. JoAnne?
Yeah, thanks, Praneeth. I think you did a great job, but maybe I'll just add a little bit to it. Yes, I have nearly 3 decades of the industry in my background. Started as a recruiter. I know, Praneeth, you're referencing the story I often tell about digital transformation and me faxing resumes and faxing jobs to the newspaper well before, the internet was such a thing or AI was such a thing. But I have had buyer experience as well as the MSP RPO delivery solutions experience. And that's where I am right now with AGS. So, I have a passion, and Noah, I'm pro AI also, all the way. The more we can do and, focus on some of those high value added type of, human-like activities, I'm all about it. So, I'm right there on the same page with you. I've been with the AGS now for about 9 months. I took a little hiatus off when I left my former company to do some advisory and consulting on emerging technologies because, of course, my passion lies there. But excited to be on this panel with you both.
Awesome. Thanks, JoAnne. Vik?
Yes. So I've been, participating in every aspect of running Mindlands for about 25 years. And it's interesting that even after so long, every day you get to learn something new. And it seems to be a very finite industry, but it isn't, or at least the way we all are comprehending it. Uh, Whether it's contingent staffing to manage services, looking at that continuum, whether it's North American staffing to global staffing, and then from analog to digital to now AI. So I think there is never a dull day. Uh, what I find exciting is, everybody has spoken about digital first and so forth. And conceptually, it makes sense. But for companies who have been doing this for very long, it's very difficult for us to undo the way we have operated. And especially what got us to be successful from day one till now, to undo that while you have to perform in the current clients and the current programs and evolve to something which is it's a fundamental shift in the way you operate. So that transition is very difficult for analog companies to make. Conceptually, we all can say we want to go that route, but it's amazing to see the power of AI and what it can do in a low code, no code scenario, in building apps today with smaller teams, with more agility than ever before.
Yeah.
So I think that's what I find very exciting. I think there will be a fundamental change. And we have always said there will be change, but it hasn't happened. Our industry is very slow to adopt. But I would bet that the next 3 years will look very different than the last 20 years.
That's awesome. Thanks, Nick, for touching that and transitioning that into our actual topic, actually, there. And I think what you just is like reflected um, earlier in any of the dinner dates or, dinner meetings or lunch meetings, anywhere, when you open your inbox, when you open your LinkedIn, when you open your news. I don't think there is any single day now I'm passing without actually reading about the next progress which happened in AI, or a new company or a list of companies which are launching in AI to solve one particular problem, trying to pay more attention to our own industry. Every day I hear a new company. At least that is the least I hear. Like, this is a new company which is trying to solve this one particular problem in recruitment and staffing, whether it's like, hey, hi, 3 days ago somebody was pitching me, because of AI people are not even applying for jobs AI is applying for jobs. So now you have like 24,000 applications in your inbox every day. And how do we actually counter that? Like my simple answer was, okay, so counter it for another AI. You're already using it. And then I was making a comment, which I wrote myself too, that we'll say like AI is no longer referred to as a matching engine of uh, generating a match score. That's way gone beyond. I think now it's more of trying to add more potential intelligence. But with that extension, because there's so much of noise which we always hear, and I think the dust is still hasn't settled even a little bit in several areas, several proof points. Um, there are barely production ready solutions at scale. In many cases, that is what I've seen. There are so many nuances. Like there was an article almost 9 months ago. I heard Guardian write about how AI has done really not so awesome job where the candidate experience is so bad, repeatedly asking that you need to answer this question right now for us to move forward. And there was no human element, because
Mhm.
recruiting in my sense is actually more of a really personalized sales job. You're picking up your phone, you're calling the candidate, you're trying to understand the candidate before you call the candidate, reading some part of a resume or a profile on LinkedIn or something else, but you're trying to understand what does this person really want in their career. And you're trying to bring that sales language then just to convert that into more of what we call as a conversion list. Can I submit? Can I place this person? Can I actually go ahead and find the interest to match the way you present? Because the job description may not actually present all the things which the candidate is actually reading with their eyes, or how they are even perceiving that, right? So that's how I see it. But because of so much of noise happening around the space, where do you think AI is today actually impacting us, and where is really it's hyped, which means there is a lot of gap. So we understand where to be careful, but where do we need to pay attention, because this is something happening today and it's improving something and impacting us today, and in what functions of what we do is getting impacted. I'll anybody can pick it up and follow through. What do you guys think?
So I was reading an article yesterday, and it was about the future of the BPO industry. And if you look at recruitment industry, it's very similar to BPO or KPO, knowledge process outsourcing, to a certain aspect. And the thesis was that the service layer, which is the where you have the maximum workforce, that can easily be disrupted by AI. So if you take a pyramid, the bottom layer, which has the maximum number of inside talent sitting there, is prime for disruption. What we saw in previous cycles was that technology would be created or innovated, but the adoption was very slow. The adoption took 5 to 7 years. Uh, I think that cycle is going to get reduced. So from our industry perspective, both as the two places where you spend most of your cost and which have the biggest leverage of making a firm successful is the recruiters and the salespeople. There is a lot of AI-led automation opportunities over there. That's one way to approach it. The other way to approach it is really do a parallel experiment or exercise to create an AI first staffing company without disrupting what you're doing, because it's just not point solutions, it's fundamentally redrawing the workflow,
That's right.
right? And if we just try to do AI screening or AI voice bot, I think they are all great and they will give some quick hits, but there's a bigger opportunity to fundamentally redraw how work is done. And then if you do that and you put AI agents as a first step, then complemented by people, as opposed to people as a first step, complemented by AI, you will get two different results and two different impacts. But it's like, are you willing to invest in that journey? Are you willing to experiment, iterate, and get it right? And just like anything, we have try to do, building a good recruitment team, building a good sales team. It goes through several iterations before you get it right. This would be a similar form of competence.
Mhm. Awesome. Anything to add, JoAnne and Noah?
Yeah, I would say that there's obviously different levels of maturity for organizations at this point relative to AI, right? So clearly AI is not new. Gen AI, agentic AI, of course, right, is changing the way that we're going to be able to do things. And I completely agree with Vik. I think, when we look at low-hanging fruit, staffing companies, organizations really should be looking at anything that you're doing manually. Why are you still doing them manually? And how can you put, some automation, whether it's a workflow orchestration technology or, any other type of technologies to bring more efficiency there? That's low hanging fruit. You should be doing that today. I also agree with Vik around, how do we really adopt this? It's a fundamental change on how we do business. So if you have a workflow and you're looking at it to, bring more automation, more AIs and, agentic AI agents to it, it's not necessarily a lift and shift. This is the opportunity for you to look at how you're doing things and the way that you're doing things, and let the technology capabilities influence how that workflow should look like. So it shouldn't be, a workflow of 1 through 10. Now here comes AI and I'm going to do the same thing just in an automated fashion. It's now, should I be doing 1 through 10? I may only need to be doing 1, 5, and 8, and just change that entirely how you're doing things. And I do hope that we're in a position now that change is going to be much faster than what we've seen in the history of our industry. That's what I would have added.
Awesome. Noah, anything to add?
Let's keep moving. I think I agree with the points. Not a lot to add there.
Yeah, so I'm going to bring in like this most sensitive topic, which is kind of discussed in our industry and also across the board, I guess, the replacement topic. Given any impact which probably in the industrial era which happened, or when the tools come into picture, when a large amount of people who are doing data entry were kind of replaced by data tools and aggregation and several other aspects. So there is some part of in our world there is going to be an impact, right? And given we are a human driven business, and if you even think today how people make placements is like pick up a phone, call individuals to, because we want to submit using that response rate really fast. If your response rate is not reaching before the requirement closes, because that happens, then you didn't respond to my requirement, so your scorecard goes down, right? And then what is your hit rate of the submission rate, interview rate, and onboarding rate, and people who really stayed their rates, right? Because there's so much of human touch and human business as such, is there that sensitive topic to talk about replacement? How is that, how are you seeing that? Do you see AI, at least in now through the next 1-2 years, as more of enabler towards your recruiting process and recruiting teams, or is it more of, you know what, this is going to replace X percentage of my team?
I have a fun analogy that we can play with here. How many of us have got one of these in our pocket? I don't care what brand. It's got a screen. It's connected to the internet. Who could tell me how long those have been around? And then before that, you were paying to a desk, right? Everybody in the audience can, get the point. But how do we look at people using a flip phone today? Everybody might have a slightly different feeling. I started on a flip phone. I started on a candy bar. My dad was an early adopter of technology. I was very lucky in that when that stuff came about, he was curious, and we tinkered, and we had a computer in the home. And yet there's plenty of people that run the world on a phone that has barely moved past 3G. So where is this analogy going? Artificial intelligence is a tool. It is going to replace some functions. It's going to make some functions extremely high leverage. Some people will not adopt that. Some people will seem like they're still on a 3G device somewhere in the middle of who knows what running the world, and you don't know why they're still running the world. Partly because it is hard to have transformation, change management, partly because you don't have to accept the new tools are better or faster, just still do what you did before. A really good friend wrote a post the other day. I'm going to give him a shout out because he's one of the reasons I know so much. His name's Mike Cohen, runs Wayne Technologies. Literally, I got his swag here. He swags me up. Really like me, very like cut from the cloth of figure it out, adopt technology. And he wrote a post talking about the tools that he used, and here's what it is, here's how I do it, right? Very open. And one person sent a picture of their phone. Like the recruiting world still runs. If you strip away everything we do on being able to pick up a phone, and I'll borrow it from sales or marketing, smile and dial. That doesn't mean it's the only way that it happens.
That's right. Yeah.
Right? AI can do a lot of that much faster than us. And if it's, Praneeth, how we met through an incredibly astute, well-trained, small language model, purpose-built for engineering recruiting or sales recruiting or marketing recruiting, applied through large language models, then you get why I started with this funny story about smartphones. Because there is a way, but it will probably take a long time before the manual part is gone. And therefore, many jobs will still exist, but some will be replaced. Just like smartphones took away some functions and needs, and other ones arose. I think it's which side do you want to be on? Do you want to be on the side using the new technology or trailing it? And which one can your business withstand before it freaks everybody out and crumbles in the middle? At the end of the day, you have to have the people that have the mindset.
Yeah, I think two things on this. I would imagine that, the opportunity to bring AI just from the fundamental ends, right? Like Noah, your dialing example, right? I'm a human and I dial, right? One person at a time, or maybe I'm sending, a mass email campaign as a recruiter sourcer, right? That thing. But imagine being able to utilize Agentic or Gen AI and have thousands done in the time that it'll take me to do one or two, right? And it's making it more efficient. Now, I do feel as though there's still that high value relationship building because we're in the people business, right? That still needs to have some level of that recruiters and sourcers will look extremely different in the future. There's also the passive candidates, right? So there's still that level there. So it's gonna look very different. I've been caught on record before saying I think 80% of what the foundation of our industry does is going to be automated. Now, the time frame, I think we can have a little discussion around what that time frame is, but I truly believe that 80% is going to be automated, and the ones that are looking at this quicker, of course, is going to have that realization a lot sooner than those that are still there. The second point to it is we're dealing with people and we're dealing with multiple personas. So for one, I love technology, but at some point, if you're recruiting me for a job, I may want to talk to someone. Whereas, my 20-something-year-old, and I said, hey, have you checked your emails? Mom, I don't even use email anymore. Why are you using email? So he doesn't. Like thanks. So you're dealing with people, dealing with different personas, and at some level, yes, it's going to work where 80% automation makes complete sense. When you're hiring for the C-suite, maybe not. That relationship and that human element and the value that we provide, the efficiencies behind the scenes and the insights that can be provided can be done through AI, and how you look at some of the things that it can enable, but that relationship and that persona still is going to require a human element within our industry.
Totally awesome. I think you touched my next question already answering.
I'll just add two examples to this.
Yep.
Somebody mentioned this and I found it to be very profound. What we do, let's say we do program staffing. And there is very minimal investment of time, effort, and resources in educating the talent in terms of what the opportunity is, how to prep for the opportunity.
Churn and burn.
Right. So the individual said, AI will be able to bring what an executive research recruiter does to the programs. And that's a value add. So we are not replacing the recruiter, but we are just making the recruiter so much more efficient. And if you conceptually think of it, what an exec search recruiter who is supposed to be best of the best, does all the research, guides the individual at every step, is a career mentor. Can you bring that to an MSPVMS program requirement? Theoretically, yes, because the technology allows you to do that. Our own in-house case study, we still have a marketing research team. Their job is to provide contact information of prospects to our sales team. Now their role has changed from market research to revenue operations. And now they are basically skilled at using a specific AI tool. So it's evolving, but these are still point solution, not a fundamental shift. But how just the individual roles are evolving and they're becoming more stronger and more effective as opposed to replacing those roles.
Great insight. So I'll have a. I want to follow up that, Vik, with another follow-on question. Um, with the ability to what we have been talking about, Joanne mentioned, like, can we get these things done? Agents are able to do aspects of things done already with the adoption curve, which typically I think our industry is like fairly okay when it comes to recruiting to adopt something new. When internet came with consolidation of Monster, and we did adopt it, and LinkedIn, we did adopt it, right? So when it comes to this specific ability to actually do beyond executive recruiting, we are talking about like our day-to-day execution jobs of recruiting, let's say contingent hires, whether it's a high volume hiring or whether it's a mid volume hiring. Is there a prediction or need you see that AI would impact the number of roles that we actually host in our organization to get the same output done? Because I'll follow up next after this with another question, because I'm only talking about like, this is our sales capacity. This is what we are generating our sales capacity, number of jobs, right? Number of jobs which are generating into our funnel. Now, from a delivery point of view, we are using X number of resources, which is, I would say, the largest volume. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is going to be the number of recruiters in a company, right? When it comes to delivery, how is that going to change with AI? That what you're seeing from impact point of view, will that number reduce? Will that number be impacted? Will the number remain the same? Probably we make more placements.
I think you could look at it both ways, whether you as a company, your focus is revenue maximization, then it's an opportunity to get more productivity out of your team members, make them more efficient. Or if your goal is cost minimization, then there's an opportunity to optimize the team size. And that's what we are seeing in the broader market. Microsoft or Meta are giving record earnings and they're still cutting workforce.
Yeah.
So it really depends on what your strategy is, what your philosophy is. Are you focused on revenue or cost or both? Typically, historically, companies have taken one or the other route at a given point of time.
Awesome. Um,
I would
and
hit on specialization.
yeah,
Um, why hire a bunch of recruiters when you can have one or two with an AI recruiting specialist? Which might sound a little strange in today's conversation, but 10 years from now, it'll be something. It'll be the agent that trained the agent that trained the large language models. So I think the roles will change. I do think it'll flat out decrease. To Vik's point, Praneeth, to your question, I think we're going to find that, as we all know, time is a pretty critical currency, and we're gonna get measured more about daily output and minute output from the efficiency of our AI work than from our work itself. And so I hope that we can remember to tie those high level measurements down to the end goal. Right? What is the end goal? Make a great hire that's really, really sticky. But I think, like, as you turn that dial up and you say, let's use more technology, which is very, very cost efficient, at least at user scale, not necessarily at infrastructure scale. How how is it that that landscape of who we hire evolves, not goes away, but it changes the number of headcount and the type of role that they do?
Yeah, no, you're
Definitely.
almost referring to, becoming a skills-based organization, but really including, the opportunity to automate that task or that job. And that's a really forward-thinking way to think about how, a lot of organizations really need to begin their journey on what that looks like. So, yeah, I think it's super smart.
My next question on that would be like, when it comes to the adoption of the AI, which we're talking about, whether it's a automation, whether it's a voice, or whether it's a campaign management, whether it's the ability to analyze a list of candidates, whether it's executive or non-executive, or whether it's appointment setting in modern day world, which can also be done. In all this, what is the biggest hurdle for our industry to adopt any of the automation or any of the agents? What is the biggest, like, is it cost? Is it the data privacy? Is it the current stage of AI, which when we say certain autonomous in the field, do we get sued for that? Is that the fear? What is that is going to be like from an adoption point of view that you see as a hurdle?
I think it was breaking up a little bit, Praneeth. I don't know if everybody else got that. Praneeth, could you just reiterate the question?
Now, the question was around what is the hurdle for adoption of AI, in what aspects and specific that we are seeing right now from an adoption. Like, I'll give you an example, right? In the recent times, any of the companies that I've spoken to, both on talent acquisition and I did a bunch of CHRO and talent acquisition, in-house talent acquisition resources interviews. And one of the biggest challenges they saw is, one, data privacy. One, they were very concerned about where is this data going, where is the AI sitting, because that's part of their internal aspects of data and data privacy, because we're giving this information, a phone number, personal information, to an AI. If you as a company or service provider giving me that AI agent, where else is that information going? How are you protecting this? These are the questions they were asking. At the same time, one of the key things is discrimination on the calls. Does AI get trained? How and what, and how are you ensuring that it doesn't do it? Is there something that you can show me right now, like it is not actually breaking my rules and not misrepresenting me as a company when candidates are asking specific things or responding in a specific fashion? How is that happening? Like, so that's my, that those are the challenges I heard from purely the talent acquisition teams, who are saying, do I need to bring this in yet, or should I wait for another year? That's how I'm seeing from a timing point of how. What are you guys seeing?
I think one challenge is that typically in our industry, we don't own the system of record. All of us on one side are using a SaaS based ATS, and it has its own limitations and it has its own infrastructure on how it manages data privacy. On the client side, you have the VMS as a system of record. I'm talking purely contingent labor here. Both of those are out of our control, both of those have their own limitations. So, adoption is a challenge, managing data is a challenge outside of our boundary walls. And historically, staffing companies, technical staffing companies, are not technically competent internally. So we really don't typically have the people infrastructure, the SMEs. So we go for the easiest way to implement point solutions, which are already integrated with the ATS. Uh, it's very difficult under these constraints to think out of the box, because you're really dependent on vendors for everything. You yourself are not competent enough. And system implementations in our industry, whenever staffing companies have made an effort to change their financial system, change their ERP, they have been major failures. So how well can this industry adopt AI? That would need a fundamental shift.
Understood.
Yeah, Praneeth, I think clearly organizations are thinking about the legislation that needs to be ensured is being met, the explainability, right, around AI, the ethics behind it. So clearly there are still a lot of things organizations need to think about. Do you have an AI principle, right? Do you go through the right channels to ensure that there's proper training around what you should be using it for, what you absolutely should not put in there, right? From a PII perspective. Clearly, I think that's one challenge that a lot of organizations are starting to get better about overcoming. But I think, Vik, you said it earlier on, our industry is very difficult to change doing something that has been done so in such a way that it's always been done before. How can you go through such a change? And clearly, I think one way, make sure you find advocates that are people who are passionate about technology and see the value of they are adding some efficiencies and driving a role to look very different today than it did in the past, and doesn't necessarily feel as though it's threatened by it, right? If people feel threatened by it, they're not going to sign up for these types of things. So I think that's one thing organizations need to think about. One of the things I think someone mentioned here, I was on a call with an emerging technology, and Praneeth, you know who this is, but I had an interview with a virtual recruiter. It was super smart. It was human-like, right? And as much as I, enjoyed it, I was still trying to challenge it around, well, what if I answer it this way, or, do this kind of thing? So whether or not it's, I don't know who it was that says maybe 2 years from now, but it's on the cusp of becoming so real that, organizations really need to think through around how to start with this. And there's no sequential right way to do it, right? Just think about your organization, your culture, and how, an area could be the starting point for you to really adopt, agentic AI or Gen AI.
I'm going to give just a concrete example because I think Vik and JoAnne do such a killer job of like thinking about the org level, and I'm down here at like the systems level. And I want for the audience to tie all that together because both of your points are like the problems I grapple with when I'm internal with the company. You mentioned a thing in particular, JoAnne. You said, like how are people not threatened by it but empowered by it? I can't explain to people how easy it is to get research on competitive companies and startups and information that was siloed behind multiple paywalls. I'll say a thing like Munch Mace, but sounds like, or we've all heard of that place that has like funding data, or compensation data, like I won't say their name, but Save, that sounds like. There's a couple of them out there. Right? You can do some rhyming and you can do some research. My point of saying those is that I can just ask GPT, and not that I trust it intrinsically, but it can do the work so much faster. And then if I'm not sure, I can ask 5 other models for free. Now, if I want to pay, I can also pay. If I want to write a large prompt of instructions that help me create an agent that does that research repeatedly, I just save myself time and my organization time. Those are all things I'm really doing. I'm not making them up. And to Vik and to JoAnne's point, you have to start doing them or you will be left behind. And even though my cell phone joke rings true, rings, that you won't actually get left in the dust. You're going to feel really, 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 really a big transitional shift of how do I get my data off of an old SIM card and onto memory locked inside a device, right? Like to use an analogy, how do I take a floppy and now turn it into a cloud file, right? That disconnect is going to happen so much faster in the age of AI than it did over the last umpteen technological analogies that we could all sit here and give. And so what I'm saying to people here is, and throughout kind of what you've heard from, I think, my peers as well, so disagree with me, You have to start doing something today that affects your work. And if it doesn't affect your work, it affects your life, because it is a technology that's coming. We can see it in the government. We can see it in the powers that be. We can see it in the technology. And even if it goes a little burp, kind of like crypto did, or kind of like blockchain has, those technologies are still there. It's just they're not as mainstream as AI, but they are still there, and they are underpowering a lot of actually what's gotten us here. Most people don't realize. So adopt today,
Awesome.
even if you're terrified.
Awesome. That's a about today. That's a keyword. Awesome. So I think we're on time. I want to close this out with the last thing about go around and give me your top one, not three, but just top one prediction that you think this is may or should happen or is going to happen based on what you're saying for our industry in recruitment and staffing in the next 3 and 5 years. How you see the world happening in? What is your biggest bold prediction right now?
Each one of us will have a agentic coworker who will do 75% of our job.
Uh, Noah?
We will be able to do more of our job from anywhere because of what Vik said, simply through voice and mobile, if at all. So I'm just piling onto what Vik said, because you can't really beat that. So just the way that we work with teams is what I'm saying, and through voice and through interface, it won't have to be in front of a screen necessarily to do as much as we do today.
Yeah, and just to add, on top of that, I'm hopeful that our industry is going to be where 80% of companies are truly really making 80% of their work automated, right? Versus, lagging in the automation of our industry as it has been for so many years. Maybe they'll heed your adopt now, Noah, right?
Probably not.
That's going to be my new tagline, by the way. Adopt now. And in 2 years, 80% of our industry, they're doing something and leaning towards 80% automation. So
Awesome. Here comes my prediction. I don't know how real it is. I try to make unreal predictions. I believe organizations who are actually our buyers for the industry are going to make a titanic shift in terms of how they actually going to acquire resources in 5 years. Primarily, a lot of this automation will lead to agents actually having a lot more information directly to the candidates, and ability to actually have them X things done. It's like, okay, you're hiring an agent to do screening, sourcing, onboarding, and everything. It's like, so what is the big deal here if we have an EOR? That's my bigger bold prediction beyond like what and how it could be done from a staffing industry, especially in the contingent side. I'm saying like a lot could happen even in companies who are full-time talent acquisitions, how they would work with external vendors, or the vendors are actually going to be just agents, is my bigger bolder prediction. With that, thanks a lot.